So now let me officially welcome you to the last day of our week-long Empower Yourself webinar series. And I'd just like to take a second, if I can, here to say that and acknowledge that we are all standing at a unique moment in history where hope is our greatest strength. We need to lean on that and lean on one another now more than ever. I'd like you please to turn your attention to the lower left-hand corner of the screen here in front of you. Those words, #human first, technology second, those aren't just snappy social media marketing phraseology. This is at the very core of everything we try to do here at New Horizons. You can have all the technology in the world, but if you don't support the people using that technology, it's pointless. And this week, beyond the competencies we've highlighted during the first 3 days and the tips and tricks that we talked about yesterday and are going to talk about today, the thread of leaning on one another to be better, not just in this crisis that we're all sharing, but in the days to come afterwards, this has been our central theme. And I sincerely hope that this has resonated with you and will make all of us strive to be better humans, better teammates, leaders, family, friends, and neighbors. So, and now on to today's session. Today's session is on working together in Microsoft Office 365, and our presenter is Bobby Garrity. Bobby is a multi-award-winning New Horizons applications instructor, as well as a valued facilitator in our Center for Leadership and Development program. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Bobby to you to lead us through this session today. Bobby, the floor is all yours.
Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are, and happy Friday. I am very excited that you're joining us for this webinar and looking forward to giving you some insight into our Office 365. You will have access to my slide deck that I'll be sharing with you today. It's listed, I believe, under your handouts, and I will be toggling between the slide content and the actual Office 365 environment, practice environment, so that you can see the actual user experience. I'll pedal fairly quickly so that we can cover as much as we can, squeeze in all the goodies that I can possibly get to. Quick introduction, I am Bobby Garrity, and I've been teaching New Horizons for 13 years. I teach all of the Microsoft Office and business skills classes. I teach in-person, dedicated, and remote classes. This particular Office 365 class is certainly one of our hot topics right now, especially during this time of crisis that we're in. And it is becoming increasingly important that we are able to continue our personal productivity as well as staying connected to our teams. And so while this is sort of a condensed version of this, I think that you will gain a lot of insight and tips for its use and its benefits. So here are my goals for you during this webinar. I anticipate showing you how to work collaboratively with files. I'll show you how to kind of navigate around in the Office 365 environment. I'll show you when you collaborate on files, how beneficial that is so that we don't have 10 different versions of one file floating around. We've had that happen before. It's not fun. Then trying to merge those together. We'll also look at accessing all of the Microsoft Office suite online. And then I'll show you around in Microsoft Teams, which is sort of a new improved version of Skype for Business. You can collaborate, you can chat with your team, you can even host team meetings, record those, and have those even be stored in the Teams environment. So what exactly is Microsoft 365? I'm glad you asked. It is an integrated experience of apps and services that are really designed to help you to work seamlessly on any device at any time with a single sign-on access. So where we used to have to be in front of our desk and work to be productive, our desktop at work, we can now pick up our work, take it with us, work on any device mobilely, remotely. It also includes automatic updates, so we always have the latest version and security. So one of the important pieces to this is, as I mentioned, Skype for Business is to become Teams. So Skype is end of life. It will retire next year in July of 2021. Many of our organizations are in the middle of migrating their users over, and they're using both in the meantime, which you can do just fine until it retires. It is truly a complete workspace package. And the great benefit, as I mentioned, is that you are able to host a recording of your team meeting. You can create different teams, and within those teams have what we call channels. I'll talk more about this in a bit, but basically buckets of conversation. I can store my recorded meeting in that channel for that team, and only the ones who have invitation to see that are able to view that recording. That way, if I miss the meeting, I can go back and sort of review that recording if I need to at a later time. More about that as we move along. So this is where I'll begin to toggle a bit between my slide deck and the actual user environment. This is the home page where you can navigate to any of your Microsoft apps. Top left corner, you'll see an app launcher. I call that the waffle. And that's going to give us the ability to navigate to any of the applications. You also have notifications, changing your settings, and you can see the current user that is logged in. Below the application launcher, you also have sort of a mini buttons that you can customize for the ones that you use most often. You can add more of these apps as necessary. There are about a bazillion to choose from. I'll show you these in just a second. And I have here also just 3 different categories for you to think about the use of these app launchers. The Outlook is going to include everything that you know and love now, your contacts, people, your calendar, and your tasks, your to-do lists. And then the Microsoft Office Suite is listed there. And we have 2 apps for the file storage. One is your SharePoint, which is organizational wide, and then your OneDrive, which is your personal storage account for your eyes only. Nobody can see that unless you decide to individually share out a slide, which you certainly could. There's no problem with that. So let me toggle for you over to the actual environment, and you will see here in my home page, I've just gone to office.com, and once I log in, this is the first page that I see. It has all of my Microsoft apps listed here. I say all of them. There are a few. There are a multitude more here. Down below that on my home screen, this is sort of an at-a-glance view when you first log in. I also have the ability to see all of my recent files that I've been working on, which is very quick to navigate back to. I can pin those in place so that they never leave that list. I can also see a list of anything that a file that's been shared with me. I have access to those here, and I can discover any work that I've been working on recently, as well as anybody else in the company who has shared documents with me. I can see what they've been working on as well. If I scroll down a little further, you just have additional navigations to launch the OneNote or the SharePoint or the OneDrive, which I'll show you more about in a moment. On the right side are my notifications, my settings, and of course my user account, which I can customize if I want to. I'll click on the waffle, the app launcher, which will give me the drop down with the smaller versions of my apps that are listed there. And again, you've got your recent documents listed there for ease of access. So with Outlook on the web, it is similar to what you're used to with your desktop version, but all of these will be sort of a mini version. Your typical big chunky ribbon where you have full functionality and all of the settings, etc. You're going to have limited functionality with that. So I'll say that a couple of times throughout. This is really to jump on if I'm on a mobile app or I'm in a hurry or I'm traveling or somebody needs me to make a quick change, check my email, etc. I can jump on any device. If I'm, of course, in front of my desktop, I want to use the desktop version so I have full functionality. So we have here our folders list. We have groups now in Office 365. That's a little bit of a change from what you're used to. I'll show you that in a moment. I also have a command bar at the top with sort of a mini toolbar ribbon. And my settings are listed here. And then I have a reading pane on the right, just as some of you are used to as well. So how this works is whenever I navigate to my Outlook, just a basic trial. This is my playground that I taught from a couple of days ago. So you'll see that we've been playing a little bit in here, my students and I. I'm looking at my inbox. This is a list of my folders, and the icon at the bottom are my email, my calendar, contacts, and my task or to-do list.
Hey, Bonnie,
I mentioned
sorry,
some new for us. This sort of takes the place of the old distribution list.
The audio is cutting in and out and it's out of sync, so maybe we should just. I'm
going to get rid of my camera.
Oh, we can't see your presentation. We only see you at the moment. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
You see my screen now?
Yes, we see your screen perfectly. You can continue. Great.
Now, let's test that out. Let me know if that's working. Maya, let me know if you can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, very good. And you should see my screen. Yes, Mayan?
Yes.
Could you see my screen okay?
Perfect.
Okay, very good. I did kill my camera, everybody, just so that it's not interfering with my bandwidth. So the camera is off on purpose, and I'm going to continue. I was showing you on the left side, I have the ability to add a group, a new group. This is new to Office 365. What this does is it takes place of the old distribution, and I can go over to my etc. So we'll call group of the old, and I can use this. I now have an instructor group, and anything I send out to them, of course, is going to go only to those in my private group. So that's sort of a new feature in the Office 365 Outlook environment. I also have my contact down at the bottom, as well as my calendar. I'll navigate to just so you can see what this. I also have also include my group. So, and I mail that as a distribution list, but I also can share a specific calendar with them so we can keep up with our information on the project. I'll go down to my contacts, let you get a glimpse of that as well. This is a list of all of my contacts, which of course I have none here, but I can add a contact. I can also import contacts. And my task list on the bottom left as well, which is my to-do list. Very good at keeping you organized. And they're listed in different categories. Again, this is the check mark that I've gone to here for my task list. I can look at a glimpse of what I have in my day. I can see it marked as important, something I have planned, or anything that's been assigned to me. You can assign a task in Microsoft Office as well, Outlook. I'll navigate back to my email now. And let me talk to you for a moment about Teams, the Teams environment. A few of you were in my session yesterday, and we took sort of a little more of a deep dive, but I'm going to give you a quick glance here since it's one of the new features. I have the ability in Teams to navigate with my team to work collaboratively. I can have conversations, record meetings, video, and I can even do screen shares within my team. So within my Teams, I can create new teams. And within those, I have what we call channels. Let me show you what this looks like in the real world. I'll click on my waffle. I'm going to navigate over to Teams. Give that just a second to load. And I have created I've created a file where you can see that I'm collaborating with a couple of different users. Give that just a moment to load. I'm going to go to the web app. We'll just stay online for this one. I have a couple of teams I've created for you here. One is the New Horizons training, and the other one is my organization. Within those teams, you automatically get a channel. This is my general channel. There's nothing I can do to adjust that. I can't get rid of that channel. It's sort of the complimentary get you started group. Once I create the New Horizons training in my general channel, and I certainly could create more channels, there are 3 tabs across the top by default. One is posts, one is the file, the one I want to show you first. I've loaded files for my team Horizons training, and in my general, these are the files that we collaborate on real time. Anything that's changed in these files will automatically be updated here in my team environment. I'm going to open this Word document called Chapter 1. I do have a couple of other practice accounts that I've launched where you guys can see where we could work real time, and I can even see who's in it currently working with me. So give that just a second to load, and you will see at the top, I have sort of a mini toolbar, right? We certainly don't have a full version here, but this is good for quick changes. I can see at the top exactly who's currently in this file. Student 15 and student 10 are both in the file. I will see all the users that are currently in. I also can see in the document where everybody is clicking and where everybody's working at the moment. So this happens real world collaboration, real-time collaboration. And if I want to have a conversation with the team, I can turn on my side panel so we can have a chat about this document as we are collaborating. The other thing that I can do within that particular file is I have some choices for how I want to basically edit this thing. I can do it right here with the little mini toolbar, or I also have the ability to open my desktop app. Now, let me mention to you, if you open it in your desktop app, you get the benefit of having the full functionality of the full ribbon in Word, but any change I make to it is still going to stay synced to this file here in my Teams. The only way it breaks that link is if I actually download my own copy of it and rename it. That breaks the link. So I'm going to navigate back over to Teams. That's where I was originally. There are also posts that myself and my team can have, just like you would be used to, having just a normal chat. I'll tell them happy Friday. Once I send that over, everybody in that team that has permission to see that team is able to see that. Now, how did the team get created in the first place? I'm glad you asked. Bottom left corner, there's a join or create team. This is how I originally created it. And I have the ability here to create a brand new team. I can create it from scratch, or I can pull it in from one of the groups that I have. I had an instructor team that I created. I could use that, but I'll build this one from scratch. And here is where I can make it private or public. A public, of course, can go to my whole organization, or I can handpick who can be a part of this. The private, you have to have permission and be invited to be able to join this one. This will be my team. I will create that. Give that a moment to load. They're proud of me. Look at that. Nice work. Thanks, Microsoft. And I will invite just a couple of my students so that you can see what this looks like once I invite. I have to handpick them. If they don't have permission and they've not been added, they are not able to say anything in this team at all, including the files or the chats or the recorded meetings. There we go. I'll just grab one more for sake of time. Once I add those members, It lets me choose if they're going to be a member or an owner. If they're an owner, they are like me that just created the team. I have full functionality, full rights. If they're just a member, they have limited rights of what they could delete, for example. And I'll mention to you that within the teams or within your organization, as you create teams, you will certainly want to have some governance over that so that it doesn't get out of hand. You don't want too many teams and too many channels. There's the Bobby Garrity team, and as I mentioned to you, the 3 tabs that are there by default, my posts where we can chat, the files that are listed, and then the third one, I'll jump up to the general one because I think I do have a few things in my wiki tab. The wiki tab is a bit like a OneNote, honestly, and it gives me just a page for us to take notes as a team. We can all collaborate on this and contribute to the note taking. It gives me sections, and within the sections I can take notes. There's a plus sign to add another section. So it's a scaled down version of a OneNote notebook, honestly, just the place to take some notes with sections. This one happens to have meeting notes because I did facilitate a meeting yesterday with a recording, and it automatically uploaded our meeting notes, which is good to know. Once I record a meeting, it will keep the meeting notes for my whole team to be able to view. So I showed you here, I showed you at the bottom where you could create a team. You also have an ellipsis beside the team with some additional options to manage the team or add an additional channel. I mentioned earlier, this is like a bucket of conversation. I may want to talk something about, I don't know, maybe it's onboarding. Maybe this is HR and I want an onboarding channel. It's a private channel. I'll add that, and I could add additional users from the original team if I wanted to. So let me clarify that. If this is an HR team, anybody in the HR team could see the general channel, but I could specify within the HR who can see the onboarding. I could make it sort of a more locked down private channel. So within one of the channels, I mentioned to you that you can chat. You've got all the fun stuff. You can upload a file. If I upload a file in the chat pod, I can pull that in from anywhere in my computer. As I loaded here in the chat, I loaded one yesterday called Subtotal. It automatically is loaded behind the Files tab, just so you know. There it lives. Good, good. So this is still in my Teams environment. The other thing that's interesting to note is the ability to meet now. I'm in my meeting, I'm in my team, we're having conversations. It gets a little convoluted and busy, and we decide we really need to call a quick meeting. I can turn on my video, call a meeting. It behaves a bit like the Skype that you're used to. It turns on our camera, our audio. We can have conversations within that. And I have the ability to record that meeting. The recording that I record is automatically hosted here in the team chat so that anybody who missed the meeting can go back and review that recording. Another interesting thing that Microsoft Teams does is it will transcribe the meeting for you if your admin allow that and that setting is turned on, so that you could go back and review just the transcription of the meeting in case I don't have time to scrub through the whole recording. So that's kind of a cool feature. So Teams on the left is where I am. I have the ability just above that to have a quick private chat with anybody in my team. I also have the ability to look at my activity in a team. This is an important piece because as the team gets really busy and I'm a part of several teams, I come in the morning and I need to see what I've missed. Maybe somebody's mentioned me or something that pertains to me in one of the meetings I need to catch up on. I can go to my activity, and this behaves a bit like Facebook. You know how in Facebook somebody can tag you or mention you and you're going to see it in your activity feed? That's what this works similarly. There are all of my activities that I need to catch up on. They'll come in as bolded so that I'll see that I've not yet read those. As I click them, they are no longer bolded. So that's my activity feed, anything that pertains to me. If you need to mention somebody to get their attention and it will show up in their activity feed, you can type in at the top an @ sign. You can grab their name in the drop down and send them a message. It will automatically tag them or ping them. They'll get a notification in the bottom right corner, just like they were getting an email. And you have the ability there to mention somebody specifically. That's the activity feed. In the search box, you also have a slash that gives you just the ability to see some shortcuts in the drop down. Basically, I can mark myself as away, among other things. Now on the top right is the bubble of my notification, and I have some options here. I can also set my status. This is another way to set your status here. I'll make myself available. And if I have a particular message that I need to go back to, just like you would flag an email in your Outlook, you can go back and flag one of these for follow-up. So I'll flag one of these just so you see what it looks like. I'll flag this one where it says Happy Friday. There's an ellipsis, and I will save that message, flagging it, because I need to go back and follow up on that. So if I go to my saved messages here, it will show me a list of anything I flagged. There'll be a list of these. As I take care of that particular item, I can click on the flag and it will go away. Those are your saved messages. In your settings, you also have the ability to control your notifications for this Teams environment. Sometimes we have overload of things that are giving us notifications, too much information. So this is all of your information, and you have the ability to control the notifications. You can have a banner or an email, or one or the other. The banner would be the right-hand corner, the little icon that comes up and notifies you that you have a message. Very good. There's a calendar as well on the left side within Teams, where I have the functionality of calling a new meeting, or I can meet now. If I create a new meeting, it shows up just like this. And if I click on that meeting that I've created, just so you can see the inside of it, this behaves a bit like your calendar in Outlook. I can invite whoever I need to, set the time, and I can also tell it where exactly I want this to be stored. I can also join the meeting from here for ease of access. Or the link below. Some of you have seen these before. When you have a team invite for a meeting, you've seen these links for being able to join. There's also a call-in in case you aren't in front of your devices. So that's the essence of how Teams itself works. I wanted to spend a moment there, since that's one of the newer ones, and make sure that you are acclimated to that environment and have a basic idea of how that works. So the other thing that I want to show you within Teams, I'm going to jump down for a second. These are just some screenshots that you'll have in your slide deck, so you will have just a good resource as a takeaway. You saw the Word online reading that I was in a moment ago, where we could collaborate real time and be able to edit together in a collaboration and see what everybody is doing inside that Word document. There's my Meet Now in the Teams. And although I didn't call an actual meeting, this is what it would look like. There's a Meet Now, or I could schedule a meeting for the future. I use this icon of the video camera to create that. This is what the meeting looks like on the inside, and you have the ability to mute your audio, video, or share your screen. Now I'm going to remove that for a moment. I'm going to go back up to my waffle. And there are just a couple of other applications I want to make sure you're familiar with exactly what they do. One of them is the SharePoint. What I want you to know about SharePoint and Microsoft Office 365 is it will mirror however you set up your Microsoft Teams. You notice I have 3 teams here and a general channel with some files. I showed you that a moment ago. As I create these, it automatically creates them on the back end in SharePoint. I don't have to do anything to make that happen. We have for years had trouble with our SharePoint just being out of control, right? Files everywhere, it's crazy. So what's cool is as I create this, if you can sort of change behavior in your organization to be organized in your teams, this is what it would look like in your SharePoint as you create those. I'll navigate you over to SharePoint. Give that 1 second to load. I will see my teams. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. I think mine's still loading. And I have all of my recent documents from those teams that I've created. I'll click on the New Horizons training, and you will see any activity that we've worked on. That's my channel, my general channel, which will have all of the documents in it that we were working on a moment ago from the Teams environment. This was created automatically. Now, everything that you know and love about SharePoint works exactly the same way here. I still could check a document out. I could look at the version history, etc. But this was created automatically when I created this in the Microsoft Teams environment. It mirrors that identically. I'll also take you over to the OneDrive account. Give that just a second to pop over. And the OneDrive is my personal file for my eyes only. Nobody can see this unless I decide I want to share it. I certainly could. I could send this over to you via email and we could work on it and collaborate together. But at the moment, all of these files I can load for just myself so that I can access them on any device at any time. I can pull those in by using a drag and drop if you're used to that, as well as some of the icons at the top. I can download these, I can upload these. I can move it, copy it, delete it. You can see some of the options here when I click on the little ellipsis. I also have the version history if I needed to look at that. It tells me on the right side if I have shared it, because if you're anything like me, I tend to forget these things, right? I have a lot of files. I don't know what I've shared. I can't remember. So this will tell me in this column if it is private or if I have shared it out with somebody. It will tell me who I've shared it with, which is super cool. Tells me when it was last modified and who modified it last. So these are just my files. I also could, if I wanted to, sync this OneDrive to my own local device, my own desktop, which I do in my real world, because as I travel, I need to know that I can get to anything from my computer anytime. So I have a folder on my machine where I've synced this OneNote, and I'm able to see anything that I need to from that. I'll show you what that looks like in my real world. Let me collapse this so it's not quite so busy. And I'll just drag this over. This is my own local machine. There are a list of all of my files, and this one is my OneDrive. If I collapse, expand that, you'll see that I have a bazillion things in it. And everything that I have in my OneDrive, I have access to online as well. So as I travel and teach these classes, I always have a backup of those. So that's kind of a cool feature. In my waffle drop down, I'll also take you to the OneNote environment. That's also kind of one that I get a lot of questions about this one. What in the world is OneNote? How do I use it? I'm glad you asked. OneNote is like an electronic notebook. It would be like I'm carrying it around with me all the time, but it goes with me on any device anytime. I have the ability to see my notebooks. I've got the full version here. I've already loaded it. I can have a multitude of notebooks. This one I've called my training notebook. And within that notebook, these are my sections, my classes, Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. I could add another section here if I wanted to. And within each of those sections, I have a multitude of pages. My Excel section has macros, VLOOKUPs, and pivot tables. And in my VLOOKUPs page, I've even loaded a file from a PDF. You can see that there. So as you can imagine, this is just a fantastic way for you to stay organized when you have tons of projects due or a multitude of things. You can do this in the professional world or in your real world, personal things that you need to keep track of. So these are your notebooks. I could add another notebook. These are your sections, and within the sections, these are your pages. You can load anything in these. and it is really, really very useful for keeping you organized. I don't know what I would do without my OneNote. I love mine so much. So that gives you a basic overview, just a snapshot view. Some of you have not seen some of these areas in Office 365. The only one showing that I didn't tell you about is Yammer. Yammer is like a social media for the corporate world, a place for you to do shout outs and share victories and anything in the a corporate form of Facebook, honestly, is what that is. It's pretty cool. I'll click on all apps just so you can see that there are about a bazillion. There are so many that you can choose from. Sake of time, I can't show you all of these, but just know where they live. You can go in and add any of these apps and collaborate with these with your team. Stream is a way to view videos. There's a to-do, etc. And there are more down at the bottom. So these are pretty endless. You can customize these for your own personal use and kind of be able to streamline the processes of your day, which is fantastic. The neat thing about it is you can access these anywhere, anytime, again, on any device, which is really very neat. So as I get ready to wrap up, let me adjust this for you so that you can see my slide deck. And let me jump down. I've shown you all of this. I just wanted you guys to have a copy of these so that you can go back and reference these things as you want to make a quick review. Final tips in Office 365, just make sure, again, that you are creating some governance in your organization so that you aren't having too many people, creating too many things that shouldn't be. Decide within your organization, even departmentally, who should be creating teams or channels, who can delete, who could rename, etc. What are the roles to consider? And again, it's like anything else that's new and upcoming. It's creating a culture of collaboration in your organization and just reteaching them these new tools and how to exactly use these and collaborate. We have a bit of a death by email, right? It's email overload. How many we all get today just during my training in this hour? It's crazy. So it's shifting some of the volume of email over to Teams. That's just one example of how we can have conversations, and I can jump on and catch up on the conversation thread or join a team member to our new project team and have them jump into the Teams channel and catch up on the conversation and all the files without having to forward all the emails and use all the distribution lists. So I hope that is helpful to you to just have a snapshot view of what these things will do. As a reminder, this was just a snippet. We certainly offer full day classes if you want to do more of a deep dive of each of these in Office 365. New Horizons has been teaching this for a long time. Some of you are remoting for the first time ever because of the situation that we're in, and it does kind of freak you out in the beginning. I remember going virtual early on, and it's shocking my system, having to work from home and juggle all the technology. We've done this for a very long time, so you can trust us to teach you and get you up to speed on exactly how to do all of this. We are trained to teach face-to-face, virtually, or do dedicated classes. And our Center for Leadership and Development has 50 to 60 post-class resources. That's one of the things that sets us apart as New Horizons. Our company gives you additional resources when you're finished with our classes. We don't just cut you loose and set you free. We make sure that you are well equipped with plenty of resources to follow up after your class. Thank you so much for joining me. I know I'm not able to see your questions, but my Ann is going to feed those to me so I can take some time and answer some of those. But it has been an absolute pleasure and delight for me to spend your lunch hour with you. Diane, I'm going to give that back to you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Bobby. I appreciate it. We have a few questions already streaming in, so please feel free to type in more. We'll try to get to as many as we can with the time allotted. Just echoing what Bobby was saying, if you have any interest in any of the material that was presented here, today, or any questions regarding what's available to you in terms of our course offerings, please contact your local center for more information. Just go on to newhorizons.com and do a quick zip code search to find the center that's closest to you. Also, again, this is the last webinar in this week's session from the Empower You series, but we do have other webinars scheduled for the upcoming months. Please visit our website and check out what we have coming down the pipeline for the full schedule. It's always constantly being updated, and you can register for anything that's coming up. And just a friendly reminder, we are recording this session, so questions and answers will be available to you along with the presentation, so you can share, pass among colleagues, or review anything that you may have missed. So let's dive deep into questions. First question, Bobby, is do you know if there's a free version of Office 365 available?
Great question. Yes, there is. Microsoft gives you a 30-day trial account. That's literally what I was using today. It's a good playground. That's on office.com.
Great. And this next question is asking, how can you assign a task to a team member or coworker using the task app? Can you have the task app show up in their Outlook calendar?
Sure, absolutely you can. You cannot do that on the web version, but on the full version of Outlook, you can create a task. On the ribbon, it will say assign task, and it behaves like a meeting. They have to accept it or reject it. If they accept it, it automatically is put in their task list and yours. When they complete it and mark it 100% complete, you automatically get an email saying that that is done.
Great. This next question is talking about the OneDrive. The person says, in OneDrive, some of us, I'm assuming him on his network, see shared libraries which seem to function like a network shared drive, but his organization discourages using it in that way. Is the official idea that OneDrive is just personal files where Teams is for shared files?
That is exactly right. SharePoint and Teams are shared collaboratively. OneDrive is for your eyes only. So that could be an internal question for your IT and how they have that set up.
Great. And we had actually a couple questions come in regards to when you were talking about creating email groups. The question here is, if you create an email group, can you share the mailing list with someone else in your organization?
Great question, and not that I know of. It's going to be personal to you, your own distribution list.
Great. And just echoing about email groups, someone was trying to confirm if they heard this correctly. When forming groups automatically forms the email distribution group as well?
That's exactly right.
Great. Another question is, if you work on the desktop version of Teams and Outlook, will they sync up together to match?
Yes, they will. Anything you do on the desktop version mirrors exactly what you have online. The only benefit off the top of my head of having the desktop version, one of the benefits is that I can do a screen share in a meeting, whereas I cannot when I'm online.
Great. And just talking about groups for a minute here, we have a couple questions about that. What's the difference between groups and teams?
Groups is going to create more of a distribution list for your email, for example, or a shared calendar. A group in Teams is more for full conversation, file sharing, calling a meeting, things like that. But I could use my group that I created in Outlook to create a team on the Teams side.
And are groups available in the desktop version?
Yes, they are.
Now, when it comes to the web app and the desktop app, the person's asking, what are the benefits of web versus desktop? Why use desktop when it's online?
Sure. So if I'm in front of my desk, I'm going to use the desktop version because I have the full functionality, I have the full ribbons. If I'm on the go, I'm going to use the online version because it's a small scaled down version. I still can get to everything, but it's hard to compose very much. So if you're at your desk, use your desktop versions. If you're on the go, use the web.
And would you say that, at least in terms for Outlook on the web, do you find that it's a reduced functionality, or is it the same functionality as desktop, but reduced in terms of visibility to all features?
It is reduced in terms of visibility of all features. That's the biggest thing. I lose my ribbon. There are so many things like the rules wizard, out of office, things that are just more challenging online that you need to do on your desktop version.
The next question is about Teams in general. Can you remove a team?
Yes, absolutely you can. As long as you have the rights to do so. That's the question. You have to have rights to do it. It depends on if they've made you an owner or a member. But yes, you can delete a team using the ellipsis beside the team. You have the ability to delete that. You can't delete the general channel. That one's there by default. It's kind of the complimentary get you started. But the team and the channel, otherwise you can delete. I'll show you that once mine loads. You can go ahead with another question if you want.
Sure. Another question is, when you're in Teams, when this person is trying to add assistants, can they use a distribution list instead of adding one by one?
Yes. So in Teams, that's one of the benefits of using a group. Otherwise, I have to add them one by one. Imagine if you have an organization that's got 1,000. I don't want to hand pick those. So if I use a group, if I've created a group in Outlook, I can just pick that particular group to create a team. And this was the question about getting rid of a team or a channel. Whoops, sorry. There's the ellipsis, and I have the ability to remove those there if I have the rights to do so. Go ahead.
Great. Just circling back to reminders for a little bit. Is there any way to add a reminder to an activity or a chat?
The only way you can do that is going to be physically to go over to your calendar and create it. So no.
Great. One of the questions is, in Teams, when you tag someone, everyone that's defined as a team member can see the message, correct?
That is correct.
Yes, and the second half of that question is just does it just also send an email to the tag person, letting them know that they were mentioned in a post?
Also correct, yes. So if you need to speak to somebody and you don't want the whole team to know it, go to the chat side, not the team side.
Great. And in terms of the calendar in Teams, the person's asking, are they the same? Meaning what you put in Teams connects to the Outlook, correct?
That is correct.
Great. This is actually an interesting question. How do you set a phone number for a Teams meeting?
It will be created automatically. When you create the meeting, it automatically attaches a phone number for the call in. And if it's an international group, it will actually give them a local number to call in. It's pretty cool.
Great. This might be more of a technical question, but I'll throw it out there. The person says that their desktop and their web versions are not syncing up. How can they have those two talk so they are synced with one another?
That is a tech question. You'll have to ask your internal folks because they should be talking to one another. Ask internal.
Great. This next question is in terms of screen sharing. When someone shares their screen, do they have the ability to give control or control access to another member in the meeting?
Not that I know of. I think it's going to be either or. I can share my screen or I can turn it off and let them share theirs.
Great. The next question is in regards to editing a document. If you edit a document in Teams, does it automatically create a new version in SharePoint as well?
it will sync up. So if I make a change in Teams, it will show up, that change will show up in SharePoint as well. They stay synced up.
Great. We have a couple OneNote questions here coming up. The person says, I currently have a OneNote that I would like to sync here. Do I just move it to OneDrive and then it will just automatically show up?
That's exactly right.
And the other question in regards to OneNote is, why would someone opt to use OneNote when they also have OneDrive?
OneDrive is really just a file for files, to keep up with your files. OneNote is more of a notebook. If I'm working on a project and I have some Word documents and Excel spreadsheets, but I always also want to pull things in from the web or incorporate some emails that I received, I can put all of that in my OneNote notebook. It's an all-inclusive, drag and drop everything into it, and it keeps all of that in one page or multiple pages. OneDrive is just files.
Great. And since we're talking about OneDrive here, is there a way to see a list of all the documents you have shared with a particular person in OneDrive?
Yes, when I showed the list in OneDrive, there is a column that tells me if it's private just to me or if I've shared it out. If I click on shared, it will tell me who I've shared it with and when I shared it.
Great. This person is a two-part question. One is in actually regards to Skype. How does Skype integrate with the 365 suite?
So Skype is end of life, as I mentioned, and until next year, July of 2021, it's up and running, but then they'll begin to phase that out into into Teams. And Teams is just a more robust, bump it up a notch sort of program where you can do the file sharing. You can use all the collaborative apps that I've shown you today in conjunction with that meeting. I can record it, I can store it in the channel, I can transcribe it. So it's everything you know and love with Skype, but new and improved.
Great. And the second question this person had is, what is the practical difference between OneNote, OneDrive, and SharePoint? They all seem so similar. Why use all three when you can use one? Just a little bit of clarity around those three.
Sure. It does get confusing. OneDrive is just for me, my eyes only, for my collection of files, my personal files. The OneDrive is just for me. The SharePoint is for organizational wide. We can all share files on that. And what was the third one? You had OneDrive, SharePoint, and
OneNote.
And OneNote is like carrying a notebook with me everywhere to stay organized. I can put more than just files in it.
Great. The next question is kind of a demo question here. The person asked, can you demonstrate the best way to schedule a meeting in the future at the team channel level?
Absolutely. So at the team level, when I go into Teams, I can create a meeting inside the calendar. I did one while ago from the chat, which is a quick, let's have a meeting now. But if I need to schedule one for the future, I can do that in my Teams calendar, which lives on the left side here. There's the calendar. Once it loads, I can establish a future new meeting. Not meet now, but in the future. Once I tell it to meet now, I put on all the specifics, and I even can tell it, if I want to, where to store that meeting. So once I record it, you can find it in one of those channels. It will then show up on my calendar. Once I create it, it looks like this.
Great. Back to OneDrive, I know we talked about the ability to share the folders with others in OneDrive, but will they have access, if you're sharing that specific folder, will they have access to all the other folders residing in OneDrive, or just that one that you're sharing with them?
It will only be the one that you specifically click on to share. It won't be anything else.
Great. Another question is, oh goodness, sorry. When you delete a message in chat, is it going to the recycle bin in SharePoint, or is this permanently deleted?
Are you talking about a chat in Teams? I believe that's what they're talking about.
Yes, I believe so.
It will be permanently deleted. It will go away. I have the ability in my chat to edit it or delete it. If I delete it, it's gone. There's my delete. And also, if it's my own message, I can also choose to edit it. Here's my Happy Friday I created. I can choose to edit that or delete it, and it will be gone.
Great. I know with the desktop and the web version, they talk and they sync up. The question here is, are you able to organize your folders on 365 to mirror that on the desktop email folders?
In my email folders, yes. So if I establish organization on my desktop version of folders, it should show up in the web version as well. Yes.
Great. And in terms of trying to find groups on Teams, this person just wanted to see, was asking if you can, on a desktop version, show how to find groups in Teams.
So if I'm looking for a group in Teams, it depends on if you have accessibility. If you aren't invited to the team, then a lot of that stuff is going to be hidden from you. You should only see the ones that you are invited to. But if I'm looking for something, I can certainly do a search. This is my search box, as long as you have the rights to see it.
Great. I know we're at the top of the hour. We have a few more questions we're going to get through. Just wanted to let anyone know if they need to hop off or anything else, they can. We'll just go just for a few more minutes with some of the questions here. Okay?
Sure.
The next question is it possible to click and drag a file from an email in Outlook to a channel in Teams?
It's a good question. You cannot click and drag, but what you can do is if you want to bring in an email and your team talk about it, the way that you would do that is in your channel dropdown, there's a get email address. I would then take that email address to my Outlook and forward it to this email address. It brings it to the team, and then we can have a discussion about it.
Great. This next question is about notifications. Circling back to that, the question is, can you explain how notifications work for changes in files or new messages in Teams? We are all trained to monitor Outlook for email, but with this, we need a monitor for a new chatter on these on these other streams. Is there a way to just see how we can set those up better?
The notifications, all the notifications from Teams is going to live in your profile bubble, down to settings, to your notifications category. These are broken into how you want the mentions to behave, the messages, and there are a few others. If I scroll down, there are a few additional ones. These are the only notifications that you can control. If it's not in this list, it's not one that you can necessarily control. And you can determine exactly what you want to get notified for.
Great. Can you explain the relationship between posts in a channel, the chat section, and the activity feed in Teams? All seem to be conversations, but the person is asking to see how they all relate.
So a chat is only going to be me to you or me to 2 or 3 more. I can choose exactly who this message is going to. And this is for our eyes only. It's just a normal chat, right? Personal chat, me to you or me to whoever. I see a thread, a list of these that I've had conversations with. Nobody else can see that. My activity feed is anything from anywhere in the Teams environment where you've mentioned me, or you've gotten my attention, or you did the @Bobby. That shows up in my activity feed so that I'm aware in a sort of a one-stop shop where I can see everything that's happening. The Teams chat, of course, is going to be viewable to anybody who's a part of that particular team.
Okay, great. This next question is actually very interesting. They ask, do you have any governance guidelines to sharing to share for creating teams. This person currently is a county IT shop. She says, would you recommend a team for each department and then channels within each department? They're just looking for a little bit of guidance or I guess best practices that you may have in terms of getting these teams set up.
That's exactly what I would recommend. Is you could do it. A lot of companies do it departmentally. That's a logical place for IT or for HR or what have you. You may have a project manager who wants to have a channel for each of their projects. So yes, that's a great start, is to start departmentally, and then have a meeting with those department heads for them to govern it, exactly who can create channels, how many there should be. Just keep in mind, less is more.
Great. With that said, Bobby, we were able to get through so many questions, and we do appreciate everyone joining us today. Thank you again for those who actually joined every day this week for us. Hopefully you learned a lot of different tips, tricks, and little tidbits on how to now work virtually and remote, and how to collaborate with team members who aren't in the office with you and are working, from home. Thank you again, Bobby, as always, for speaking and presenting on behalf of New Horizons. Thank you again for everyone for sharing and taking the time to join us. We appreciate that. With that said, have a great weekend, everyone. You may now log off from the webinar.
Thanks, everybody.